today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Ahead of her upcoming fight with Raven Chapman, Sky Nicholson is not confident the Amanda Serrano fight ever happens.
Maybe not, but context is key. Look at who Amanda is about to fight.
That's what's always missing from these kinds of conversations, the actual context. So Sky Nicholson has been aiming for Amanda Serrano for close to 2 years now. Unfortunately for Nicholson, landing a Serrano fight is seemingly as elusive a task as landing on Nicholson herself.
Could that be because she's about to fight Katie Taylor at a higher weight for undisputed?
Tell the whole story, why don't you? She just refuses to entertain the idea of a fight with me, Nicholson said in a recent interview with Lewis Hart of Boxing Social. You see her face when my name gets brought up in media interviews.
Well, I'd get annoyed too if people kept asking me the same stupid question.
It doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence that that fight will ever happen, but I never say never, so I don't want to say the fight will never happen, but obviously I don't see her and her team ever showing any interest in that fight.
Is she supposed to be more interested in fighting you than fighting Katie Taylor?
Are you as decorated an amateur or as highly rated as a professional as Katie Taylor, undisputed at 2 weights, undisputed currently, that you're expecting Amanda to be more interested in fighting you than fighting her? Because that's what these articles and conversations, that's what they don't touch on, what Amanda's actually doing.
Gee, it's almost like the people writing them or the people conducting the interviews have an agenda.
Nicholson fought in the 2020 and 2021 Olympics and then entered the paid ranks in 2022. The 29-year-old from Queensland, Australia, won the WBC's interim featherweight belt in her 8th pro fight.
Oh my god, stop the presses. She won an interim title.
Serrano, formerly the undisputed champion at featherweight, vacated the WBC's full title last December when the sanctioning body refused to allow her bouts to include 12 3-minute rounds, as male fighters have, instead of the 10 2-minute rounds that most women's fights feature. Nicholson then picked up the vacant title in April with a wide decision win over Sarah Mahfoud and defended it in July with a shutout win over Diana Vargas. She is 11-0 with 1 KO.
And she is a good fighter. I think Sky is a good fighter.
Serrano has since vacated the IBF title as well, but still holds the WBA and WBO belts at 126. She hasn't defended them since an October 2023 win over Daniela Ramos.
In other words, she's defended her belts in the last 12 months?
A March fight with Nina Menke was called off at the last minute due to eye problems caused by a hair product. Serrano, who has hopped up and down from weight class to weight class over her career, returned as a lightweight in July with a quick victory against the overmatched Stevie Morgan, and she is scheduled for a rematch with the undisputed super lightweight champion Katie Taylor in November.
Oh gee, I was waiting for you guys to mention that part.
I just feel like the longer it goes on, the less rewarding it is for me, Nicholson said. At the end of the day, I want to dethrone champions. I want to prove I'm the best by beating the best. The later that fight happens, if it happens, the more the response will be, oh, she didn't fight her in her prime. She was done. She was old. She was this. She was that. It's like, well, I've got the receipts.
No, you know what? I'll call Amanda right now. Call the Katie Taylor fight off.
All the millions they stand to make, all the anticipation of their second fight, just screw all of that, because Sky Nicholson is more important.
That's gotta be the response you're looking for if you're still belly aching about Amanda.
I've got the receipts, and I've been calling her out for 2 years. While it is frustrating, we move on. Nicholson complimented Serrano's accomplishments. Someone who's obviously done so much for the sport, has been a trailblazer, has so many records, and being a 7-division world champion and the rest of it, and holds belts in my weight class. Of course, naturally, that's the fight I want to chase, but they have made it quite clear that's of no interest to them.
Maybe it isn't.
Amanda has already fought more decorated and accomplished fighters than Sky Nicholson. Beat more decorated and accomplished fighters than Sky Nicholson. Here on the eve of a Taylor versus Serrano rematch, Sky could still be moaning about how Amanda won't give her the time of day. Read the room.
I don't begrudge Sky Nicholson her ambition so much as her lack of situational awareness.
What the hell is supposed to be so interesting about you to her?
Think about it.
Is fighting you gonna get her the same kind of money that fighting Katie again is gonna get her?
You know the answer.
And are you as highly rated a fighter as Katie Taylor?
You know the answer.
What's a bigger feather in Amanda Serrano's cap? Fighting and beating Katie Taylor in a rematch, or fighting you and beating you?
You know the answer.
Everybody does, but it feels like some people are just playing dumb. playing stupid. You see, Amanda Serrano has been tied to this Katie Taylor rematch for weeks and months now because it was supposed to have happened already, but Mike Tyson fell ill, so they had to push it back.
They pushed it to November.
Knowing that she's moving up in weight and she has to fight Katie Taylor at 140 pounds, she had a stay busy fight at 140 pounds. This is common sense.
A weight she hasn't made since 2018. She has to acclimate.
She has to prepare. And this is all common sense, though oftentimes common sense is removed so that conversations like this can even be had.
That's what it is.
So let me spell it out for you. No, you're not important to Amanda.
You're just some girl.
You're not going to be important to Amanda with your 9-0 or 11-0 record and your little interim title.
Are you joking?
It's not because you're a bad fighter. It's because she's got bigger fish to fry. It's not a hard concept to understand.
There's no nice way to say that you rank pretty low on Amanda's priority list.
Kinda like how Kell Brook and Keith Thurman ranked pretty low on Mayweather's priority list.
Kell Brook was a champion at the same time as Floyd Mayweather.
Keith Thurman was a highly ranked contender at a time when Mayweather was WBA champion, and that's all well and good, and that's nice, but he had bigger fish to fry.
So once the audience and some of the journos get a new face, a new plaything,
they play dumb. So Sky, what would you like? Would you like for Amanda to call off the Katie Taylor rematch and all the millions of dollars she stands to make, the undisputed crown at a second weight? Would you like for her to call all of that off?
because that's not as important to her legacy as fighting you,
Fine.
apparently.
Yes. That sounds pretty damn stupid, doesn't it? When you tell the whole story.
I'm not against Sky getting the opportunity, but I would understand. I would understand if she doesn't.
Amanda's in a unique position to make more money than most women boxers could ever hope to make in a rematch that she's wanted.
So in light of that, why would Sky be a priority?
There's no nice way to say that she isn't. She just isn't.
Focus on Raven, man.
And if you beat Raven, if you actually beat her, go after the winner of Bermudez versus Menke. They've got a belt, they've got a title, you want to unify.
The poor me, Amanda Serrano won't notice me shtick. It's getting tired.
I find it peculiar that, if you're, he's been swearing up and down that he's innocent, then, and if it's so easy to prove, obviously one would go to court and prove that rather than, cough up 1.5 million and take a 1-year ban. People were cooking me in the comments because I said 2 years instead of 1.
Yeah,
but it's just, regardless, why would you take that ban? And I'm not coughing up that much money. Regardless of how much money you have, I ain't coughing up that much money, especially if I know I'm innocent. It's so easy to prove, but he took the other route, so I feel like that says a lot.
I do too. Ryan Garcia must have caught wind of these comments from Caleb Plant saying, "Why is it circling around now that I pled guilty to PEDs?"
Because you did.
I let the New York State Athletic Commission make the decision they wanted to make, which was a 1-year suspension.
No, you accepted a plea deal for a reduced sentence.
You had to pay a $10,000 fine, the maximum in the state of New York, plus forfeit over $1 million from your fight purse, and even with that, you were still banned for a year.
Had you not accepted that, who knows? The New York State Athletic Commission might have suspended you for 2.
Ryan said, because I was advised that even if this was taken to court, no matter what the court decided, the New York State Athletic Commission will still do whatever they wanted to me.
Well, that's how strict liability works. The countermeasures you're intended to take are preemptive.
You don't make gross oversights, let shit hit the fan, and start crying about how innocent you are. Supposed to be a bit more attention to detail from the athlete who, under strict liability, is responsible for whatever ends up in their body.
The reason it works that way is because everybody can come up with cockamamie excuses, cockamamie stories for how something ends up in their system the way that Ryan did.
There's always a lofty explanation. It's almost like an exercise in creative writing.
Ryan said, "I never took steroids."
Yeah, nobody did. Nobody does. In these situations, how many times do you remember anybody copping to the rap, just accepting and admitting they willfully took a banned substance to achieve a competitive edge?
I've never seen that happen.
I don't know. He apologized for it. You guys think that's really an apology? I don't know. Y'all think he apologized for real? You think that actually means something? I mean, he did say some crazy shit. Bring somebody back from the dead and kill him again. What? But you can say sorry about that, right? Can you say sorry about that? Bruh. But to say something as hateful as killing somebody? That's a little odd, don't you think?
Are you saying that's something you can't come back from?
I want to take that one back, man. You can't. There's no way. You don't accidentally. And I know, I bet he feels like a dumbass now, but I mean, maybe you should go hop off the.
You know it's bad when Rolly's making a valid point. The overall egregiousness of Ryan Garcia's hate-filled tirade, his rant. This is away from the boxing stuff and the Osterin stuff, away from the suspension, all of that.
The very serious nature of what it was Ryan Garcia said about several groups, ethnic and religious. It's simple, really. Maybe you're not a member of those groups, and maybe you are not so affected by what he said, but some people are. And for the ones that are, well, there's no coming back from that. Not for Ryan.
That contrived apology.
So when you see somebody online, or maybe a content creator, doesn't like Ryan Garcia, thinks he's a despicable person, thinks he's a bad guy, why are you guys surprised?
Because I still see some people arguing in Ryan's defense.
You're still defending this guy. By now, it's indicative of one to two things. One to two primarily.
What?
That you yourself, behind closed doors, likely say the same kind of hateful things that Ryan said publicly on his social media, that you're birds of a feather.
That's one.
Two, there's likely a tribal element to it, that you and Ryan might have one or two things in common, aside from the hate speech.
Lineage and background and all that stuff, so you feel so inclined to defend him.
But for the people that don't have in common with Ryan what you have in common with Ryan, why the hell are we supposed to care?
Why are you telling us?
You defend him, all that tells me is you're just as big a piece of shit as he is.
Pocho.
There's supposed to be some kind of solidarity? Hey, go be solid by yourself.
Pocho.
You want us to be nicer to him? You want us to go easy on him? Why? Because you identify with him? I don't care about you, and I don't care about him.
He's a scumbag.
He's garbage. And you shouldn't be surprised, after what he said, that some people think he's just a piece of trash.
He's a scumbag.
And if you still like him, for whatever reason you like him, that's between you, God, and Ryan.
Don't tell me, I don't care.
And if you try to do it anyway, you're just going to get yourself muted. You're going to have to make some other kind of account to be able to comment here, and it's a lot easier for me to mute those accounts than it is for you to make them.
You're not in control.
Nobody's here to listen to you. They're here to listen to me.
Me!
You'll do as I say, or you won't get to say anything.
Ryan is trash.
What would be, do you think you'll get a bigger gate than Canelo?
Who knows? MGM's guaranteeing the gate.
Do you think you'll
Who knows what the gate will really be?
Do you think you'll get more pay-per-views?
I don't know. Listen, what I'm focused on that weekend is putting on a show that nobody's ever seen before. I'm more concerned about, this show is so complex and there's so many different moving.
Change of tone from Dana White. Dana White, who's hosting a pay-per-view the same day as Canelo versus Berlanga, a pay-per-view that Turkey LL Sheikh said would eat Canelo's pay-per-view, in essence eclipsing Canelo's event with this UFC event. You hear a lot of uncertainty from Dana White as to whether or not it'll do a better gate or whether or not it'll do better pay-per-view buys.
You don't sound so confident.
I never thought of it as a competition because it isn't. MMA fans are going to watch the MMA show. Boxing fans are going to watch the boxing show.
They don't share an audience. I can't stress that enough. While there are a few hybrid fans that take in both sports, the majority of boxing fans,
most of us,
if they don't have a boxing match to watch that night, they'll probably just do something else. But they're not going to automatically watch the UFC show because a lot of boxing fans aren't into that.
Now, there might be a few that are. I'm not saying those people don't exist. I'm saying enough of them don't exist that constitutes sharing an audience and thinking that one show can eclipse the other. They don't share an audience on that scale.
That's why it's not a competition.
Even if initially Turkey LL Sheikh thought it was.
It's not.
I don't want to rain on anybody's parade that thinks these two sports are competing with each other for the same eyes, but they're really not. And because of that, it's possible. Dana's show could be successful. It could do a good number of buys and do decent at the gate. The same applies to Canelo's show. That's the reality of it.
It's happened before.
The night that Canelo Alvarez fought Caleb Plant, for the undisputed crown at super middleweight. There was a UFC show that same night, a UFC pay-per-view, and it did good numbers. It did less than Canelo's show, it did less numbers than Canelo, but still, it did numbers.
It was successful.
Maybe this show can be too. The disconnect is thinking that you can usurp this date from Canelo Alvarez, essentially usurp this date from the sport of boxing,
And colonize it.
annex it to your UFC. The audience that spends money on that day for a combat sport, that audience is an audience primarily comprised of boxing fans.
You guys need to come up with your own dates and your own traditions, because these are long-standing traditions that are upheld in the sport of boxing. You need to get your own. And what I usually notice about these discussions is it's always the MMA.
This MMA versus boxing conversation that some like to indulge in, it just feels like
They're always trying to borrow from boxing while simultaneously talking down boxing.
terminology, some of the jargon that you hear in boxing, parallels between all-time great boxers and modern MMA fighters. It's the MMA guys doing this.
They're the ones trying to borrow from boxing. Boxing isn't trying to borrow from MMA.
Boxing doesn't need to. Usurp dates set aside, characteristically set for MMA matches. No, it's the other way around. That's what Dana White is trying to do.
Further borrowing from boxing.
For all of boxing's faults and drawbacks and things that me and you complain about as boxing fans, boxing still doesn't borrow from mixed martial arts, and it doesn't need to.
Dana has his own biosphere for his UFC fans, that audience that he built, and credit to him for building
And a
it.
very successful company. He has effectively cornered the market on that combat sport. But that and this are different beasts.
I think it's the MMA fans that wrestle with that the most.
The MMA world, they want it to be a my dad is better than your dad kind of deal. My dad is better than your dad conversation when nobody gives a shit about your dad.
Nobody over here.
And you love your dad and you look up to your dad and your dad's great. Hey, that's great for you, man.
Great, man.
It's awesome. But you don't have to pester us with that stuff. We don't care.
Sorry.
It's like you want the boxing community to be jealous of what you've got going on when the boxing community doesn't care what you have going on.
Well, Turkey's doing a show for you guys. How many shows has he done in boxing?
Take a number.